Welcome to Accelerating Your AI Journey, where we sit down with tech experts and executives to learn how AI is empowering teams to do their best work. My name's Tiffany Jansen, a software developer, tech consultant, and host of Talk Tech with Tiff. In today's episode, we are unpacking how Lenovo's cutting-edge AI solutions are powering the next generation of sports experiences. I mean, everything from high-speed racing to live broadcasts and arena operations. And behind every game, every match, every race is a very complex data ecosystem keeping it all running. And Lenovo's hybrid AI advantage is what's powering it all and making it all possible. And today, I am here with Robert Daigle, who is the Global AI Director for Lenovo's Infrastructure Solutions Group. Robert, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Tiff.
Thank you so much for being here. I am exceptionally excited to sit down and chat with you today because from previous conversations I've seen you've done to your role at Lenovo, you have experience working with a lot of different sports partners, if you will.
Like everything from sports teams, from collegiate teams to some of the biggest brands in sports and entertainment. And we work with a lot of organizations outside of sports and entertainment, but it's really exciting to see how sports organizations are embracing technology and artificial intelligence like never before. There's a couple things that I've seen that every team, and it doesn't matter if it's a local college team or if it's some of the biggest sports organizations in the world, the first thing is they are tech driven. It is part of their fabric and their DNA that they use technology in everything that they do, from like recruiting to how they monitor the fairness and equity of the events to safety to player health. And the other thing that I've noticed is they're very data driven and data intensive. I mean, you think about some of the data that they're pulling for like a race event. Sometimes they're pulling up to like 200 different sensors in real time and trying to analyze that with a race with sometimes up to 40, 50 different cars at the same time. So it's the amount of data that they have to process and then try to make real-time decisions is just incredible. And then I think the third thing is they expect the tech to live up to their requirements around performance and reliability. You can't have downtime. You know, they're not allowed to have downtime, so their technology can't have downtime either.
Absolutely. It's almost in a way like these different sporting events and organizations are their own mini tech companies that, you know, are partnering with other tech companies like Lenovo themselves. Without the tech, you know, it would be a completely different sport at this point.
Absolutely. And that's why you see these partnerships like what we do with the F1, for example, where their technology partner is because they need strong partners like us to help ensure that they can leverage technology and the latest technology and ensure that it's high performance, that's reliable, and that it's secure. And so that's why we work with some of the biggest sports names in the industry.
I would say the biggest. Robert, when it comes to, you know, fan experience, how does AI create more engaging and immersive moments for them?
Yeah, I think with fan experience, sports teams, they think about like fan experience from what happens at the event, like game day. You want a great experience when people are coming to your event. And so how you treat them before they show up, how you engage with them ahead of time, to what happens, you know, during the event. And, you know, it also means that we have to have great experiences for fans that are watching half a world away too. So it's not just about the game day and what happens there. Everything affects the experience that you have. Like it has to do with player safety and the health of your participants, whether it's one of your drivers, if you're a race team, or if you're a football team. All of those things matter when you're talking about fan experience. A couple of years ago, I got to work with Circuit of the Americas when they were hosting the F1 event. And we got to do some really cool projects. Like we set up an AI avatar in the Paddock Club that created like a digital concierge. So if you're in the Paddock Club, you could walk up to it and ask it questions about the race, the event, different facts about F1. And it can provide that really cool, engaging experience through that avatar. And what's cool about something like that is you could have your ambassadors in that kiosk, in that avatar, which creates this really kind of engaging experience that you can't do in any other way using AI technology. So there's a lot of different ways that we're seeing sports and entertainment leverage AI to enhance the fan experience. So I think that's where using AI to augment, we talk about augmented intelligence sometimes, but to augment what your workforce is doing is really powerful and a really amazing way that you can start infusing artificial intelligence into that experience. But it doesn't just stop there. I mean, it goes all the way back to things like enhancing the broadcast. That's a huge part of what a lot of these sports organizations are focused on, because so many of their fans may never get a chance to actually go see a race or an event. The more immersive you can make that experience through the broadcast, through the actual event, to everything leading up to it or after it is so, so important, because you may have a lot of fans that never get the opportunity to actually go and participate in person.
And it really comes down to that personalization aspect. Even with the AI avatar that you mentioned, it is everyone is going to go up to it uniquely, asking different questions from what they are curious about. And utilizing AI to do so means that everyone can get answers,
So that's an example. Another example, when we worked with Circuit Americas, we created essentially like a co-pilot, an agent for all of their staff, their contingent staff. So they hire, I don't know, a few thousand contingent staff before the event, and they train them. But then also you want to make sure that that they can answer questions when people are walking up. And so that's another way where, they can just type it into an agent and get that response in real time and provide the right guidance back to patrons. One of the things that we found that was really cool when we did this project is that most of the questions, over 80% of the questions, were revenue generating. And so essentially, without using AI, you're not only not providing the best experience, but you're also leaving money on the table.
Line events are high stakes and time sensitive. How does Lenovo ensure reliability for those critical moments?
So actually, this is a really exciting thing that we just announced. You mentioned the hybrid AI advantage. That's our framework for bringing artificial intelligence to our customers, for customers that want to deliver AI factories. That's essentially a framework of hardware, software, services, devices, and we bring this together into bundled solutions to deliver AI at scale. One of the things we just announced, which is really exciting, is a whole new lineup of inference servers that we announced at Tech World that really underpin that AI factory and provide the reliability and performance that customers need. These are some of the highest performance inference servers on the market for AI workloads. And what's really cool is it spans from edge to some of the highest performance data center systems that we have in the market today. And it's from the Lenovo ThinkSystem brand, which is the highest reliability brand in the server industry. So we're providing the reliability of the Lenovo brand with some packaging up some of the highest performance inference servers in the market, which is really, really powerful. We're really excited about this new launch. And these systems are the types of systems we're implementing to support some of these really amazing use cases that sports and entertainment customers are focused on.
That's incredible. For someone watching who maybe isn't as tech savvy, how would you describe to them the power of these inference servers? Do you have any examples, or maybe you can't share specific use cases at this moment, but potential use cases as to how they will really help different sporting operations or different enterprises?
Well, the performance is increasing exponentially on AI systems, and that's what's enabling a lot of these new agentic workflows. They wouldn't be possible without us being able to deliver the performance required for these new workflows. Some of our customers in other markets are using AI for coding, for example. You have to use really big models, like models that are 400 billion parameters or more in some cases, to do this type of development. And before that, you basically had to have a supercomputer to be able to do that. And now we can do that packaged up in something that's an enterprise grade single node server. We can support these really large models on. So that has just changed the game across really any industry that started working with generative AI. This is unlocking agentic AI for industries that really before would have either not been able to afford the cost to invest in a huge supercomputer. Now they can do that in a really affordable and economical way.
Huge step forward. Cost savings, productivity, personalization. The list goes on.
Yeah.
Beyond sports, how can these same AI capabilities accelerate business outcomes in industry industries?
So look, AI is transforming nearly every industry. And I think one of the big transitions that's happening right now is we are in this transition from training to inferencing. If you think about what's been happening in the market over the past 3 years or so, people have been heavily investing in training infrastructure, building bigger and better models. But at some point, we have to cross a chasm to move from, okay, we're building all these great models, we have to implement them and utilize them. And that's where inferencing plays a role and will be so powerful for enterprise organizations. Look, many of these companies, they're not going to go build their own models. They're going to take models that already exist and deploy them in their IT environment. So inferencing is so critical for enterprise organizations. And so at Tech World, we just announced 3 new inference servers that I'm really proud of. They provide some of the highest performance inferencing in the market across one of the most reliable AI brands for AI infrastructure, which is our Think system infrastructure. So what's really cool, the first one is the Edge. Lenovo ThinkEdge SE455i. It is designed specifically for high-performance, low-latency workloads that run at the edge. We've been talking a lot about sports and entertainment. Look, they need real-time insights from that data. From every example I gave, whether it's F1, whether it's IMSA, whether it's Richard Childress Racing, Carolina Hurricanes, the one thing that's common among all of them is that they need real-time insights from what's happening and need to derive real-time insights from their data. And we can do that by using edge infrastructure, and we need really high-performance infrastructure at the edge. We get the privilege of working with customers across various industries. We're actually sitting in Raleigh right now, which is not only Lenovo's headquarters, but it's the home of our Lenovo AI Center of Excellence. Yes. So a lot of the projects that we work on with customers are actually start right here in this building we're sitting in, which is really cool. And we work with customers across retail, manufacturing, healthcare, financial services, government organizations, really virtually every industry. And they're all trying to solve different problems. They have different pain points. In retail, especially here in the US, there's a lot of challenges with retail organized crime and loss prevention. So that's typically a starting point for a lot of retail organizations that have brick and mortar stores. And others, where they have more online presence, they're looking at recommender systems and how to improve the online experience for their online customers. Manufacturing, of course, supply chain is always a challenge for manufacturing organizations or consumer packaged goods. So anything that you can do to infuse agentic AI into supply chain operations is really a great place to start. And even like some of the things that we do in Lenovo, we do a lot of investment in using AI in our supply chain. We operate in over 180 markets, so we have to think about how do we get product out to our customers in that many markets. And we own a lot of our own manufacturing facilities, so we actually can manage the whole end-to-end process and infuse AI where we need it in that process. So we use AI in our manufacturing facilities to do things like defect detection. We use it to manage our part supply and optimize our inventory, and a lot of different ways that we leverage artificial intelligence internally. And I think all manufacturing organizations are thinking about these use cases. And agentic AI just opens up the next realm of possibilities where we can start automating in a way that we couldn't before, which is really, really cool. And then we work with, customers across, I mentioned state and local government, financial services, from algorithmic trading to everything to consumer banking, improving consumer banking experience. So a lot of really cool use cases that we get to work on that start right here in the lab in Research Triangle Park. One of the other things we do is we also have a partner program called Lenovo AI Innovators. Okay. So if you think of our hybrid AI advantage of the foundational building blocks, we can then add some of our AI innovators to that provides a full stack end-to-end solution. So I'll go back to some of the use cases in retail. Yeah. We've got partners that have really great solutions for using computer vision for loss prevention. That's going to land on those new edge inference servers that I mentioned before. And it provides a fully baked solution for retailers that want to use computer vision to curb misscans and scan errors at a self-checkout, for example. We use those same servers trackside. We mentioned racing earlier. So IMSA is another race organization we work with, and they use those same servers in their mobile data center that sits at the track to analyze data from the cars in real time. So they have sometimes upwards of 50 cars on the track, and some of those cars have over 200 sensors that they're pulling data, streaming data off of, And, they use it for ensuring safety. If there's an issue, they look at equity in the race to make sure the race is equitable between teams. And then they provide some of that data back to the teams to be able to use it to analyze their performance on the track. And so we use that same server there. So that our new inference portfolio is really going to impact a lot of different industries, whether it's real-time edge inferencing or agentic workflows that land in the data center.
Thank you so much for sharing those examples. I love that you shared from retailers using it with computer vision and edge computing to catch those real-time incidents or challenges that they face with theft. But then on the flip side, sporting events, using it for racing, for example. What did you say? It was 200 touch points on the car for days?
Sometimes more. Some of the different manufacturers have different sensors on the car, but some of them have more than 200 sensors that are pulling data in real time off the vehicle during the race that they're using to make instantaneous decisions about, do we need to put a caution flag up, or do we need to make certain decisions? So they're pulling that data in real time, and the engineers and the staff are making decisions in real time from that data. And it's really powerful to think of how much data they're generating from each sporting event is just incredible.
It is, and it's one of those things where we were speaking earlier, where it's these, especially in racing, it's milliseconds, whether it be someone winning a race or different kind of things that come up in real time. It's instantaneously almost, it feels like. So having access to that data immediately to make decisions in the moment, but then also too, as you mentioned, taking that data away for the teams to then reflect on and learn from is huge.
Yeah, I'll give another example. We got to work with Richard Childress Racing a few years ago, and one of the things that they were experiencing is essentially that. I mean, they win or lose a race sometimes in a matter of milliseconds. And so shaving just a second or two off of a race could mean the difference of winning and losing, right? So they actually started working with us on a smart pit stop project. And as you can imagine, there is no pre-built software for that out of the box. So we actually built them a custom solution that runs on our edge inference servers. And it's really powerful because it allows them to make better decisions during the race. Because if you think about what they did before, they took all of that footage, and they have like a bunch of cameras around their pit stops. They have their full camera array. They have body cam footage on some of their staff. And they took all that data, and basically after they lost, unfortunately sometimes, but after the race, they would go analyze, well, what could we have done differently? And essentially like foo upon that data and understand like, what could we have done better? What could we have done differently? What worked well, what didn't? But that's after the race is over. You can't influence that race anymore. That's only for future state. So what they wanted to do is start making decisions in real time based on that data. So we started building AI models that could actually analyze that footage in real time and determine like what's actually impacting their pit stops and make them longer. Where did they deviate? And one of the things that we found is the fueling is a pain point for them, refueling vehicles. In NASCAR, you can't have any gauges on the car or on the fuel can. It's just a rule.
Okay.
So basically, they start with a full tank of gas, and they know what their burn rate is on the fuel based off how many laps and the RPMs of the vehicle. And they can estimate their burn rate, but they don't know how much fuel needs to go back into the vehicle to actually gauge that accurately. So they use a very scientific method. The guy plugs in a fuel can, and he just starts counting 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. Super scientific,
Very scientific here, yeah.
But that's how they estimate how much fuel is going back into the vehicle. So what we did is, we have all these cameras, and we're already doing analysis on the pit. We could actually determine based off the tilt of the can, and we know which can tell us the flow rate. We can estimate very precisely how much fuel is going back into the vehicle. And then we just tell the guy when to stop. We just give him a red light when it's time to stop fueling. So it allows them to optimize the fuel and the refueling. And then they can make decisions like, well, maybe we could just do a little refuel now, and then we've got to change the tires in a few more laps anyway, so we're bringing back in for a tire change there. And they can just make better decisions about how they manage the race and try to save a few milliseconds here, a few milliseconds there, and it literally can mean the difference between winning and losing a race.
That's incredible. I had no idea. I'm never going to watch a race the same again. That's so cool. I love the scientific way they were doing it, though. It's very technical.
You really have to master the accuracy of your counting, to make sure.
That person who does that has a job for life, because they're like, okay, we know how you count, so you're the only person. We all count slightly different, so you are
exactly. You're the most accurate, so that's job security.
Exactly. There you go. And they say AI is taking away jobs. That's creating it. How does Lenovo ensure systems remain secure and stable in high-performance environments? I mean, you just gave me a great example. What are some other ones?
I'll give another example, too. Like, we did some work with the Carolina Hurricanes, and there's a great case study we have out there on our website about this. But, Lenovo is recognized as one of the most reliable brands in the data center. And there's a survey that goes out every year on different brands. And we always rank number one for like the past, I think, 6 or 7 years. We've ranked number one in uptime and reliability, which is really powerful because that's the type of performance that, these sports teams expect. They can't have downtime in the middle of an event. That's just unacceptable because everything they do, like we said, is rooted in technology. Broadcast can't go down. Their analytics, their information they're utilizing cannot have any downtime during an event. And so working with someone like Lenovo, where we can deliver that reliability and have a very secure, very reliable platform for them to run all of their analytics and maintain all of the data and information from their events is super, super important. And so that's critical. That's table stakes. That's a must-have when you're talking about technology in sports and entertainment.
Can you share some examples where Lenovo's AI solutions and services are already making an impact? And I mean, on one hand, I feel like throughout our conversation, you listed so many, but is there any other ones that come to mind? I mean, I could pick your brain for days. As the global AI director, I feel like because there's so many different industries that Lenovo's AI solutions touch, it's really fascinating to me to just hear some of these examples.
Sure, yeah. We've already talked a little bit about manufacturing, and I've given some examples of Lenovo and how we use AI. That's a great position for us to be in to say, look, we're drinking our own champagne, so to speak, right? Some people say eating your own dog food. We like the champagne, but we're doing this ourselves. We're adopting this technology ourselves. Retail, we've talked about some of the use cases in retail from both brick and mortar to e-commerce. We're going to be at NRF as well this year talking about some of our agentic AI solutions specifically built for retail, which is really exciting. And there's just many other industries. We didn't talk about financial services sector too much, so maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
So we actually recently worked with a financial services banking company that we partner with. And one of their challenges is they have a lot of analysts that dig through like mountains of reports. Every quarter, all of these publicly traded companies release all of these reports on their earnings. And they have analysts that their full-time job is just to dig through these reports, read all of them, and then create summaries so their investment teams can make decisions around which ones they should prioritize investments for or not. And so that's a lot of work that they have to do. And what's really interesting is agentic AI is completely transforming that process, where it used to take sometimes weeks to generate these reports. Now they can generate them in a matter of hours. Wow. Where they can take essentially all of those earnings reports and they can dump them into a data lake, and they plug that into a RAG architecture and can basically just create prompts. Write different prompts for the different information and insights they want to glean from those reports and create summaries based off. It's like data summarization is just one of the other low-hanging fruits for agentic AI. We talked about code development. That's another one. That's just transforming the development space. You're a developer too, so I'm sure you have some thoughts on like how that's impacting code development, but it is completely transforming when you can go from we went in a matter of 2 years, we went from not really using AI too much in code development to like generative AI, like code completion, to like the next year, it's like, we're just going to do vibe coding and we're just going to give it a prompt and let it like write everything, for us. So
Amazing.
it's just changing the game for any kind of DevOps environment too. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of information about that, but that's another one we see. There's a couple low hanging fruits for agentic AI, and then customer service, customer support.
Yes, of course.
We're seeing a lot of use in that. Even within the IT sector, we have quite a few customers that are like transforming their support teams or IT help desk by using agentic AI as their front line. And I think that's a way to test it internally, to say, okay, we're going to test this out with our employees, but then they can take that externally and say, okay, we also have a support line on our website. We could just put an agent right there and change the way people experience our brands, and we can transform the way they interact with our brand, which is really, really powerful.
It is. It really is. As AI continues to evolve, what's your message to leaders looking to embrace it responsibly and effectively?
So I think one of the things that is so important is, as you're embarking on this AI journey, you have to establish a responsible AI framework for your organization. That has to be table stakes for every organization. I think that's one of the few key things. If we look at the imperatives of AI, there's a couple that I think of. First, every organization is going to be doing something with AI, or virtually every organization. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when are you going to start. I think it's a competitive requirement that you to stay competitive. Like I mentioned, if you're doing code development without agentic AI today, you're going to be left behind very quickly. I don't know how you keep up with that. Data, we talked a lot about data, and data is like the fuel for AI. And so being able to orchestrate your data, to clean it, to make it useful, I mean, that does not change. The old adage of garbage in, garbage out is absolutely true with AI. If you plug in bad data into a RAG architecture, or you fine tune a model with bad data, you're going to get bad results. You're going to get hallucinations. You're going to get inaccuracies. So I think that's so important. And then this idea of like hybrid AI, you probably are like wondering, why do we call it the hybrid AI advantage? Because we don't believe AI is just going to exist on device or in your data center or in the cloud. It's going to be across all of those. And so that's why our framework is designed to really bring AI to where you need it most, to put it at your fingertips of where you most need it. And sometimes that means it's going to be on device. So that's why we're building AI PCs for those that want to leverage neural networks that run on the NPU, because that is where some AI needs to run. And some of it is going to run in the cloud, and then other parts are going to run in the data center. And we're delivering solutions that go across that continuum. And that's really what our hybrid AI advantage is about. And I think the last one, coming back to it, is that you have to do all this responsibly and ethically.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's really, really important. Even organizations, like I've met with one customer, I've only found one, that says, we're not going to use AI.
Really?
We're not going to do anything with AI. We're going to ban it in our organization.
I'm surprised you even found one.
We found one.
Wow. Okay.
We found one. But you know what's interesting about it is they still have to create a policy for their organization. They have to do training and education around AI so people know what to look out for and what not to do.
Yes.
They have to implement tools to monitor and make sure that people are being compliant to the policies. So they have to do responsible AI, even if they don't want to do actual AI.
The irony.
Yeah, which is really, the irony wasn't lost on me there.
Yeah.
So, but I think every organization is going to have some framework for how you evaluate AI technology, how you create, a good balance of encouraging innovation without putting your company at risk. And, so you've got to have a framework, you've got to have policy, you've got to have education inside of your organization to make sure you're doing it effectively. We started this about 4 or 5 years ago at Lenovo. We started a responsible AI committee, and that's evolved over time. Now we have a chief AI officer that oversees a lot of our responsible AI efforts, ensuring that we don't endorse something or utilize something that's going to put our customers at risk, our employees at risk. It's so important. I think every organization has to wrestle with that.
All right. So you mentioned there were 3 big announcements at Tech World, one being edge servers. What were the other 2?
So the next one is called the Workhorse, Lenovo ThinkSystem SR650i. And this is really designed for the most common generative and agentic workflows. It's based off our 650i platform, which is our 650 inference server configuration. It's built on 2 Intel processors with 2 NVIDIA RTX Pro Server Edition GPUs, which really provide a great foundation for organizations that want to get started with generative or agentic AI. Either at a single node, they're just using one box to kind of play around with some different models, or build a POC, or if they want to scale that into a small cluster in their data center, they can do that on site in their own data center without having to go out to the cloud or use resources outside of their IT environment. And with so much data sitting on-prem today, we see a lot of repatriation within the data center where not everyone's just running to the cloud for their AI projects. Some of them want to run locally in their own data center, either for data security and sovereignty reasons. Sometimes it's cost. Like typically you can cut your cost by 25 to 50% by running your AI workload on-prem, or for whatever reason that they have concerns about. We provide a path forward for them to get started in a very scalable, like single box, AI in a box, so to speak, and then scale up into a larger deployment.
And 3. What would 3 be?
So the next one's called the Beast, Lenovo ThinkSystem SR675i. It actually supports up to 8 NVIDIA RTX Pro Server Editions at the full 600 watt power profile. If you think about that from a generational perspective, look, each one of those RTX Pros, for some AI workloads, performs up to 5 times what the previous generation did. So wow. Sometimes up to five times the performance over the L40S. We can pack 8 of those into a 3U enclosure, which is the most dense performance, 8 GPU high performance system on the market today, which is really, really incredible. And then we also give the optionality for customers that want to do some fine tuning. They can use the H200 MVL GPUs instead of the RTX Pro Server Editions. And so really, they can start on a single node. They can start with 2 GPUs in that box. They can scale up to 8 GPUs, and then they can scale that out. We have up to 8 scalable units. So that's essentially 32 GPUs times 8. I don't know what that number is. Sorry, my math isn't good today, but you can scale that out into a very large AI cluster. So it provides a highly scalable, high performance system for the most demanding AI inference workloads.
Robert, I'm curious, as AI is evolving so quickly, and as someone who works with so many different enterprises, how are they evolving with AI?
So that's a really interesting question. Look, many organizations that come to us, they want a scalable approach to getting started with AI and something that they can grow into over time. But they don't necessarily want to run to the cloud and have to move all of their data into the cloud to do that. And so one of the things we've done to make it easy for customers to get started in a very scalable way is our TrueScale AI as a service offering. It provides a OpEx way for them to invest in the infrastructure, but also provide the support services they need and managed services they need to be able to manage their AI infrastructure while it runs on-prem in a private AI environment.
Robert, thank you so much for joining me today. It was really inspiring to learn more about how sports organizations and other enterprises really, even speaking about Lenovo's hybrid AI advantage and how it's delivering power to so many of these different organizations. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you so much for tuning in to this episode on accelerating your AI journey. I'll see you in the next one.
Lenovo.